Hello, I'm Sumaya Ceylan and you're watching Playback, Türkiye World's weekly showcase of our best stories from around the globe. Coming up, we look at an Israeli operation in the occupied West Bank that killed 4 people and injured 40 others following a ceasefire. Former U.S. President Donald Trump dodges questions from the New York Attorney General investigating fraud elections. Tensions and expectations are high in Kenya following the country's presidential election. We go to Nairobi to find out what voters are thinking. And Türkiye's 4th drill fleet embarks on a hydrocarbon exploration mission as part of Ankara's Blue Homeland strategy. A funeral has been held for senior commander of the Palestinian group, the Aqsa Martyrs Brigades, who was killed in an operation in the occupied West Bank. Ibrahim al-Nabulsi and 3 others died during a raid on a house in the town of Nablus. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, at least 40 others were injured. The Israeli raid followed a ceasefire that was brokered between Israel and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza. Mustafa Fatih Yavuz reports from the occupied West Bank.
Almost 2 days after the latest offensive in Gaza, Israeli security forces launched an operation killing 3 members of Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, including its leader Ibrahim Nabulsi and a 16-year-old Palestinian during another operation in the city of Hebron. Israeli media say Nabulsi had remained undetected to Israeli forces for some time. His charismatic personality had endeared himself to many Palestinian youths in the city, earning him the nickname the Lion of Nablus.
They killed Ibrahim, but there are 100 Ibrahims. I see everyone in front of me as Ibrahim. All of you are my sons.
The Israeli government has accused Nabulsi of carrying out attacks against its forces. Other members of Nabulsi's team who were killed were Mohammed Azizi and Rahman Suba. Their funerals took place in the city of Nablus on Tuesday, with frustrated Palestinians firing machine guns into the air.
Israel wants to end anything related to Palestinian resistance. Every day there are new martyrs and new fighters, and Israel can't finish the resistance.
There will be another election in Israel. Right-wing Israelis use Palestinian blood to climb the stairs of politics in Israeli government.
This is where Ibrahim Nabulsi was killed. According to reports, it was a highly targeted attack. Israel used a shoulder-launched missile to kill him. This is what's left of the room where he was hiding. Analysts say the international community fell short in promoting a political solution to the Palestine-Israeli conflict that would end such operations.
The international community for a long time relinquished its responsibility, not only specifically what's happening in the last few days, which is horrendous, many people are killed, and there is a real danger of escalation, but also try to promote a political solution. And when there is no political solution, that's exactly what happened.
As Israel's Prime Minister Yair Lapid hailed the operation a success, many Palestinians in the occupied West Bank just hope to live their lives in peace without the constant fear of Israeli aggression. Mustafa Fatih, Türkiye World, occupied West Bank.
Donald Trump spent 6 hours in the New York Attorney General's office and he refused to answer a single question. The former U.S. president is being investigated for business malpractice, allegations he denies, saying the investigation is a political witch hunt. Tier 2 World's Franco Ciardo reports.
Former President Donald Trump gave a thumbs up to the press as he arrived for questioning by investigators from the New York State Attorney General's office. Trump was supposed to give a sworn deposition to answer accusations that he misstated and misled lenders and tax authorities about the value of his assets, including Trump Tower. But former President Donald Trump invoked the Fifth Amendment, refusing to answer questions that could incriminate him and lead to an indictment. Afterwards, Trump issued a statement criticizing New York State Attorney General Tish James. In his statement, Trump said, Attorney General Letitia James openly campaigned on the policy of get and destroy Trump. We cannot permit a renegade and out-of-control prosecutor to use this investigation as a means of advancing her political career. But even if Trump is found to have violated civil state laws in the case, he would only be subject to financial penalties. The New York inquest comes 2 days after FBI agents executed a legal search warrant raiding Trump's Florida estate. Federal agents removed boxes of documents that President Trump is accused of illegally withholding from the National Archives. The FBI already recovered 15 boxes of White House records at Trump's residence in February, and some analysts say Trump could be barred from running again for president if he is charged and found guilty. Trump supporters say the Department of Justice went too far.
What we see here is really a line that's being crossed where the Department of Justice has raided a former president's home.
There is a parallel criminal investigation being conducted by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Trump's finance chief, Alan Weisselberg, and the Trump Organization are accused of scheming to provide under-the-table and off-the-books compensation to Trump Organization executives. So far, Donald Trump has not been charged in the criminal probe. Frank Uciardo, TR2 World, New York.
New satellite images of Tuesday's blast sites at a Russian airbase in Crimea appear to debunk Moscow's claims that the explosions were accidental and that no vital machinery was damaged. Ukraine has still not officially claimed responsibility for these strikes. Russia annexed Crimea in 2014 and said attacks on its territory would cross a red line. Melinda Nusifora has the latest from Odessa.
Large burnt-out craters and at least 8 warplanes destroyed. These latest satellite images show the extent of the damage from Tuesday's explosions in Crimea. An unnamed Ukrainian military official says this is the start of his country's widely anticipated southern counteroffensive. Although Kyiv hasn't officially taken responsibility for the strikes on the Saki Russian airbase, there's mounting speculation that these were targeted attacks.
This is the question everyone is asking is, when will the war end? Some say months, some say a year, some say even more. But the matter of time actually depends directly on the question of the losses suffered by Russia.
The coordinated blasts happened almost 200 kilometres away from the front line, deep in Russian territory. Publicly, Ukraine has never acknowledged having weapons with this kind of long-range capability. It will likely be a hot topic when defence ministers meet in Denmark on Thursday to discuss how best to enhance Ukraine's arsenal.
The more weapons Ukraine receives, the more military, technical and financial support, the sooner our people and all Europeans will once again be able to live peacefully.
While fighting intensifies in the east and the south, the deal to lift Russia's blockade in the Black Sea is holding. Ukraine's grain corridor continues to be a rare sign of cooperation during this conflict. The UN representative to the Joint Coordination Centre, based in Istanbul, says there's growing interest from the international shipping community to access the ports here in the Odessa region, and the team is looking to streamline the process.
We receive literally dozens and dozens of phone calls every day and emails asking, when can we get ready to go? We're aware that there are a number of empty grain vessels sitting at anchorage in Turkish anchorage areas, waiting to arrange the contracts. And once they have their deals arranged, they'll be transiting northbound.
But there's still no sign that diplomatic successes here will be replicated on the battlefield. Melinda Nusifora, TRT World, Odessa.
Almost 10 cargo ships carrying grain have departed Ukrainian ports over the past week after a breakthrough deal to lift a Russian blockade was reached in Istanbul late last month. On Monday, one of those ships reached its final destination in northwestern Türkiye. Ruhu Radhakrishnan was there and sent this report.
In peacetime, Ukraine exported up to 6 million tons of grain every month. Now, almost 6 months into Russia's war in Ukraine, a cargo vessel has arrived at its final destination in the port of Derince, after months of intense negotiations by Türkiye and the United Nations. As it arrives here in the Turkish port of Derince, Polarnet not only carries 12,000 tons of grain from Europe's breadbasket, but also carries hope for more food stability around the world. From here, it will be distributed in domestic markets. Other shipments will head to destinations in Europe and Asia. The resumption of grain exports is being overseen by a joint coordination center in Istanbul, which include representatives from Ukraine, Russia, Türkiye, and the UN. The deal, which was brokered in July, is set to last for 120 days and may be renewed if both sides agree. The captain of the ship says the grain corridor is also a humanitarian one.
With the help of our state and the leadership of our president and our foreign minister, a nice result was accomplished. A grain corridor action has started. I add a humanitarian corridor on top of the grain corridor. Since it's carrying food, we can say there is a humanitarian corridor as well.
20 million tons of grain is still stuck in the country as a result of the blockade imposed by Russia on Ukrainian ports. If this deal holds, Ukraine expects to export up to 3 million tons of grain per month, around half the usual amount pre-war. But it will alleviate severe food shortages around the world. Rahul Radhakrishnan, TRT World, Dirince, Türkiye.
Kenya has voted in a tightly contested presidential election. TRT World's Adesewa Josh has been in the capital Nairobi over the past week. She tells us what people are thinking and the biggest challenges that await whoever takes office next.
Kenyans are looking forward to welcoming their new leaders at a time when the country faces several challenges. The polls happened in the middle of an economic crisis. The country is struggling with a 5-year high inflation of 8.3%, a high youth unemployment rate, and the worst drought in 4 decades. The new president will be held accountable by an electorate full of expectations and hope for the future.
The next president of this country is first to prioritize on the economy because many Kenyans are suffering, jobs are not there. Even those who have money, the money is not enough to cater for the needs, like for the basic requirements as a person.
I think the president should also focus on the 2/3 gender rule that has been very tough to achieve, given that you've seen even the judiciary tried to find a way to have the National Assembly implement it, but it has not been successful. So the next president should make sure the 2/3 gender rule is achieved.
In my view, I think the next president needs to focus on the public debt. It's quite a number, it's quite a huge thing. And also look at how to really seal corruption loopholes. Kenyan problem is never about positions or who holds them, but about how effective that person who holds that position works.
Kenyans, especially the youth who voted in this election, will be looking forward to seeing the changes they had hoped for and the implementation of all the promises made on the campaign trail.
Police in the U.S. state of New Mexico have arrested an Afghan man suspected in the murders of 4 Muslim men. 3 of the victims were killed in Albuquerque, the state's largest city, within the past 2 weeks. Another died in November. Our North America correspondent John Brain reports.
Naheem Hussein was shot dead in a car park in Albuquerque on Friday, less than a month after becoming an American citizen. He was on his way home from the funerals of 2 other Muslim men, murdered within a few days of each other.
Our city suffered another tragic loss overnight. Another young man who was part of the Muslim community was murdered. As with the previous 3 murders we mentioned on Thursday, there is reason to believe this death is related to those shootings.
The first victim was killed in November. There are fears all 4 men were targeted because of their race and religion.
Our community has been devastated, as you can imagine. We've never gone through anything like this before. This is really a surreal time for us. We're in fear of the safety of our children, our families, and at the end of the day, as Raul Torres, our district attorney, said, it's not about just the Muslim community, but the entire community. We're all in it together.
In a tweet, US President Joe Biden said, "I am angered and saddened by the horrific killings of 4 Muslim men in Albuquerque. While we await a full investigation, my prayers are with the victims' families, and my administration stands strongly with the Muslim community. These hateful attacks have no place in America." Meanwhile, the authorities in Albuquerque say there'll be an increased police presence at mosques and other Muslim centres until further notice. John Brain, TRT World.
Colombia's first leftist president was sworn into office on Sunday. Gustavo Petro is promising to end violence in rural areas by making peace deals with drug trafficking groups. In July, the country's police officers suffered a wave of attacks, raising questions about security and stability in the South American nation. Manuel Rueda has more from Bogota.
These are the latest victims of Colombia's war on drugs. In July, 13 police officers were murdered by drug traffickers and rebel groups. The killings have sparked several protests and prompted religious ceremonies where people have gathered to pray for the fallen police officers.
Our nation's police are going through a critical moment where they lack security and government support. But we are here to show our appreciation and tell them their sacrifices are not in vain.
Violence is increasing in rural parts of Colombia as rebel groups and drug traffickers fight over territory that was abandoned by the FARC guerrillas following their peace deal with the government in 2016. These criminal groups are smaller than the FARC, but they're also targeting security forces.
To traffic narcotics in an easier manner, to try to force a confinement of the public forces. That could be one reason.
Colombia's government blames most of the recent police killings on the Gulf Clan, a drug trafficking group that exports several tons of cocaine each year. Its leader, Otoniel, was recently extradited to the United States, and the group has retaliated by attacking police officers and staging roadblocks.
They want to show that they are a strong group. It's a way for them to increase their bargaining power in potential negotiations with the government.
On Sunday, Colombia's newly inaugurated president, Gustavo Petro, said that he wants to start peace talks with armed groups across the country in order to reduce violence. Petro hinted that Gulf Clan members could get reduced prison sentences if they disarm, but achieving that kind of a deal is complicated.
It's not guaranteed that if the government makes an agreement with a commander of the Gulf Clan, that person will represent the group's interests, and that person will be able to enact discipline throughout the chain of command, successfully demobilizing the group. So the extradition of Otoniel broke that chain of command quite significantly, and now it's unclear who's at the helm of the group.
And peace talks in Colombia face another hurdle. International treaties only allow the Colombian government to cut deals with criminal groups that are willing to provide truth and reparation to their victims. Currently, it's not clear if the Gulf Clan is willing to go that far. Manuel Rueda, TRT World, Bogota.
Germany is rushing to reduce its dependence on Russian gas and find alternative sources of energy. The government has approved the reopening of coal-fired power plants and called on its citizens to cut their electricity consumption. This comes as the European Union's gas emergency plan comes into effect. Our correspondent Sibel Karkush reports from the German capital.
At a time when Germans are weathering high summer temperatures, this shop in Berlin has just sold its last electric heater.
My fear is that there will be problems and we won't have heating. Maybe we won't even be able to take a hot shower. That's why I urgently need it.
Dwindling natural gas supplies from Russia haven't just prompted citizens to look for alternatives. Over the past week, the government has refired shuttered coal plants it initially wanted to phase out by 2038 in an attempt to avoid a broader crisis. And with the capital Berlin most likely to fall short of its gas storage target before winter hits, other environmentally risky energy sources could soon be reactivated too.
As far as the energy supply in Germany is concerned, the 3 last nuclear plants are relevant exclusively for electricity production and only for a small part of it. Nevertheless, it can make sense.
And amid a standoff with Russia over a gas turbine for the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, German officials say wider measures are needed. Municipalities have been cutting off hot water and dimming the lights of famous landmarks. Officials warn this may reduce energy consumption, but not the risk of social unrest as energy prices rise. According to a tenants association, millions of consumers may not be able to pay additional heating costs that could exceed $1,000 per household this year.
For many people who are already pinched for money, energy prices are a seriously threatening financial problem, and the feeling of social decline, the fact that they are no longer able to participate in certain cultural or social forms of life can of course cause a division of society.
So far, the majority of Germans have been supporting sanctions against Moscow and the measures needed to wean Germany off of Russian energy. The question now, analysts say, is how long those measures will remain popular as the cost of living spikes. The German government says it would rather switch off the lights now than deal with bigger problems later. But whether its efforts will incite a call to solidarity or to protest will only become clear once the cold sets in and bills are due. Sibel Karkuş, TRT World, Berlin.
Türkiye has launched its fourth oil and gas drilling ship as it seeks to cut down its energy dependency. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says the vessel will operate within the country's sovereign territory and there's no need for permission from any other countries. TRT World's Hasan Abdullah has more.
This is the latest addition to Türkiye's fleet of oil and gas drilling ships. It's a highly advanced seventh-generation vessel. There are only 5 ships in the world with this technology.
Today, we are opening a new page in our deep-sea drillings that started with Fatih and continued with Yavuz and Kanuni. Our 7th-generation drill ship, the strongest of our fleet, Abdulhamid Han, will soon set off the first mission in the Mediterranean, carrying the prayers and hopes of our nation.
It's been named after the assertive and shrewd 19th century Ottoman Sultan Abdulhamid Han. Despite the weakening Ottoman Empire at the time, he confronted several powers and defeated the Greeks in 1897. At the inauguration of Abdulhamid Han drilling ship, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan sent a message to Türkiye's neighbor Greece, the Greek Cypriots, and their main backer, the European Union.
I would also like to remind those who want to ignore our rights guaranteed by international agreements and try to distract us with fabricated maps that they've bitten off more than they can chew. We have not and will not hesitate to fight tooth and nail when necessary to protect our rights. You only need to look at recent developments to see that an alliance with Türkiye is much more valuable, profitable, and makes more sense than opposing us. Those who walk the path with us win. Those who walk against us lose.
Over the next 2 months, Abdulhamid Han will drill exploration wells in the eastern Mediterranean. It can drill to a depth of 12,000 meters. That's further than the world's deepest point, known as the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean. Hasan Abdullah, TRT World, Mersin.
Intercity Istanbul Park played host to last year's Turkish Grand Prix. And as Rümeysa Kalın Karabulut found out, it's also home to an interesting collection of antique tractors.
Blue, yellow, red, green. It's not a candy shop, it's a tractor gallery. Located right next to Istanbul's Formula One racetrack, this collection boasts 150 antique tractors, 53 of which are currently on display. Used and retired in rural Türkiye, these machines were then repaired and repainted before finding their way to a new home.
So we found these tractors all in Anatolian villages, mostly abandoned and salvage condition. We collect them and we restore them to their original condition. And then our chairman had an idea of creating a museum out of these tractors. Since we are managing the Formula One racetrack, it was really a nice opportunity to showcase these and create a museum out of these tractors.
The oldest vehicle in this collection was made in 1939, and some of the brands here no longer exist. All the tractors are fully functional, And anyone participating in an event or training at Intercity Istanbul Park can visit this gallery as well.
From farmland to racetrack. This is a 1985 Mercedes-Benz tractor. Now, the track that we're on is normally used by the latest race cars, which have upwards of 700 horsepower. This guy only has about 70, but that doesn't mean it won't be fun to take for a spin. Rümeysa Kalın Karabulut, TRT World, Istanbul.
Well, that rounds up your week of news here on Playback. Stay tuned to TRT World for the latest stories.